What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go.
What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? It is Thursday afternoon. Well, it's about lunchtime. I'm about to fly back in a couple hours. So I was like, you know what? Let's bang out a little Fugazi Friday podcast, which is just going to be a mailbag only. I got about 30 minutes in me. Wanted to get something out for the weekend. There was, so we got some final preseason games, and then we will have some clarity on rosters next week, and we'll be off and running. And obviously leading into the opening weekend of college football. Well, I consider it opening weekend, week one. But today, Fugazi Friday. Mailbag only at John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered here on the show. You guys know the drill. But before we dive in, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners in the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time. You need to get on, download the app, any event you want to go to. Football game. Football is here. You want to go to a game this fall, college or pro. Baseball, playoffs right around the corner. Basketball this fall, college or pro. Concerts. You want to go see Taylor Swift whenever she goes back on tour, I got you covered. Download that Game Time app. Cannot recommend them enough. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, that's JOHN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute takes, lowest price is guaranteed. Okay, let's fire out some questions. Long-time listener, first-time DMer. This is from the camera guy. Doesn't even have a real name. Been a long-time Pats fan, and it's been a while since I had the quote-unquote best team in the league strut. That's true. With the addition of the great running back and the development of Drake and a rebuilt offensive line, you think the Pats are genuinely turning this bad boy around 100%. And to me, it starts with a coach. We've seen a lot of talented young quarterbacks become disasters in awful situations. So is Drake May going to be good? I got no clue. Obviously, we've seen a lot of young quarterbacks with quote-unquote promise not turned into anything. And we've seen guys that no one believed in become really good players. So you never know. But if you tell me to get Mike Vrabel, who's proven that he can turn the Tennessee Titans into a playoff team. Hell, he got him the number 1 overall seed. If you tell me you get Josh McDaniels, awful head coach, fantastic offensive coordinator, and you talk about drafting the running back, who's probably the fastest, most explosive player they've had in a long, long time, who's great at using running back? Josh McDaniels. Him and Tom Brady, they utilize the running back out of the backfield, throwing him the ball, getting him the ball in space a ton. Wide receivers are a question mark. And listen, I think it's a little bit probably like Denver last year. I don't expect them to be a real contender, but if you tell me they win 9-10 games, I'm betting on that. I expect them to win 9 games. I think 10's probably their ceiling, but the 9-10 range, I don't know if they have quite enough offensive firepower. But the Jets are holding player-only practices, but the head coach is there. The Dolphins are in shambles. So I think division, the AFC East, beside the Bills, who should beat the Pats, I like the Pats a lot this year. It feels like for the first time, my excitement level for this upcoming season is at an all-time low. I don't know if it's the game changing, too much media saturation outside of the lines, or that the Jets haven't been to the playoffs since I was 13 years old. I'm sure once week 1 rolls around, I'll be watching. But do you have any relation to the lessened excitement level toward the NFL? No. Cannot relate to that one. My excitement for football in general is really, really high. I love watching football, always have, and probably always will. Obviously, I talk about it for a living, so I'm glad that a lot of people, the excitement level's high. I do think if we did a study, there is a direct impact on you relative to your team. And your team hasn't just let you down. They've been a joke. So you guys are holding player-only practices. How would there be any excitement to watch Justin Fields skip balls into the ground? So I think it's more of the Jet situation than the actual league. And the thing with oversaturation, because I agree, you could argue we're oversaturated with everything. Just don't pay attention for a while. put down your phone. Don't click on the website or whatever the video that pops up. That's whenever I feel like I've had a little much, I just don't pay attention to something for a couple days, and it usually helps. This is from Robert. Been a Bengals fan for 10 years, and considering the expectations, last season has been the most disappointing so far. With the Bengals missing the playoffs, I mostly blame the front office. I also noticed the Bengals front office includes several of the owner Mike Brown's relatives. In my opinion, hiring so many family members is a bad idea. As you've said it before, the open market, the cream rises to the top. Is this kind of family hiring common across NFL teams? Or is it more of a Brown family thing? What was it like with the Lurie family during your time in Philadelphia? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Well, I forget his name, but his son has taken on a much more prominent role. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie, I think, is like 70 years old. So, like, whenever he passes away, his son is going to, Julian. When I was there, his son was really young. So his kids were not of age to be doing anything. So I think, Julian is just the future owner of the team. Like, that's where it gets weird when you have, like, he's the future owner of the team, but you have some of these situations where, like, 6 family members are running everything. I mean, this is the way the Jones family operates. And it can be complicated, I would imagine. I mean, in an ideal world, my kids, if I owned an NFL team and had some children, I'd be like, we're owning the team. It's hard because you're trying to, like, teach them life lessons and do right by them, but we're billionaires. Like, I want to win games, and my best chance to win games is for me to find the next Howie Roseman and the next Sean McVay. How do we find the next Andy Reid and the next Bill Polian that are 38 and 42 years old? And they do everything. And you know what we do? We go to our games on our private jet, we take our dividends, and we fucking love life. But this notion of, like, I'm sending my kid out to scout, now, if the kid loves it, which maybe he does, I have no problem with. But if he's going to own the team whenever I die, like, what's the point of putting him in these roles? Now, you could argue that's how he learns everything, and there's some truth to that. But I don't know. It's a complicated situation because I think it's easy to hate on it when you don't own the team or you don't own the company. Like, you want to be around your children. So I completely understand. I just think the NFL is kind of unique that way of, like, it feels not the most optimal way to maximize your potential to win. Colin's chemistry top tier. Colin recently did a podcast with a dude from Meet the Press. During the great discussion, both went on a tangent about the book they both loved, written by Johnny Carson's lawyer after Carson died, and the attorney-client privilege ended. They carried on enough for me to buy the book, and it's great. Colin mentioned he had a top 10 list of books he has read. Could you pry that list from Colin on one of your Sunday pods? Also, would you ever consider being a guest on a non-sports podcast? Your non-sports tangents are nice. I'd be a guest on, if a podcast that was important enough asked me and they weren't, I would do it for sure. I did, after I saw your question, I made a little list of things that people asked me to ask Colin that aren't necessarily related to, like, what do you think of Drake May? What's Caleb's completion percentage going to be? But just life things. And your question was near the top because I did not hear that. And I'm going to download that audiobook as well. Well, you might be reading the actual hard copy. I'm more of an audiobook guy. Good question. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back, baby. Think you know the game? Put your college football knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. From live betting during the rivalry week odds boosts and so much more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to stay in the action from the kickoff to the final whistle. Here's the thing. We got a top 25 matchup happening this week in Ireland. Iowa State taking on K-State. I've been listening to a lot of people. My guy Josh Pate, Iowa State, a little bit of a sleeper this year. You can get them right now. Odds are subject to change. Kind of like Iowa State +3 this week. Across the pond, Iowa State +3. I think I'm going to hammer it. So here's something special for first-timers. New customers, bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers. Get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Question for the mailbag. With Rashawn Slater out for the season, how do you think this will affect the Chargers offense? Does it mean Justin Herbert will be forced to throw more? Will Jim Harbaugh stick with the tried and tested run game? I just think it's not. I mean, it's a disastrous situation. There's no way around it, because a huge point of difference for Harbaugh in general typically is his offensive line. And this offensive line, I mean, he had the best tackle combination in the league. And to lose this guy, and I haven't seen the latest, like, are they going to leave Joe Alt at right tackle? Are they going to move to left? Harbaugh's usually pretty mum about that. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. I've had some people ask me, like, what would you do? Well, it's like, do you think Slater's eventually going to come back? Because if you do, then you just try to piecemeal the left tackle, because if you move him to left tackle and then it's a problem, then the right tackle, it's like one of your tackles is going to be an issue. And the reality is, in the NFL, most teams line up their pass rushers all over the place. If your right tackle sucks, Max Crosby will line up over him. If your left tackle's a scrub, they'll put Khalil Mack over him or Myles Garrett over. Like, they'll just move their personnel based on where your weakness is. And a lot of teams now have multiple good pass rushers. So I don't just think like the right answer is just take him to left tackle. I remember saying it to Howard Mudd. I'm like, this guy's a right tackle. He's like, what do you mean? What does that even mean? I'm like, well, he's not as good of an athlete. And he's like, when I was with the Colts with Peyton Manning, we had Robert Mathis on one side and Dwight Freeney on the other side. So if you're like, well, this guy's feet sucks, he's going to get smoked. So if you feel Slater's coming back now, if you feel this knee injury is going to derail his career, you might as well just pivot him over to his blind side. But man, that sucks. Question for you. It's no secret the Rams are in the quarterback market next year. At the same time, the Bengals are a mess, and there is growing buzz that Burrow could look to force a move next summer if this season doesn't go well. Do you see it in the cards that the Rams and McVay make another blockbuster? Well, let's just say the Bengals go 8-9, and Burrow throws 40 touchdowns, and the defense sucks. And it's like clearly not his fault again. Organization's in shambles. Of course, and Stafford retires. There's no team that would be more willing to break the bank. Literally, they'd extend his contract, even though his contract's already huge, and give up unlimited picks to acquire Joe Burrow than the Rams. Mike Brown is never going to do this. I feel very, very strongly on this. Joe Burrow would have to pull a Carson and literally retire and just be like, I quit, before Mike Brown trades him next offseason. Absolutely no chance. I see they could win 2 games. He is never trading Joe Burrow next year. Now, eventually, years down the road, maybe, but I think he'd go, I already paid you. I paid you 2 wide receivers. I'll bring in a new coach. But I see under no circumstances, because, yes, McVay and Les Snead and the Rams would want Joe Burrow. 1,000,000%. So would a lot of other teams. Mike Brown's not trading him. No chance. Not in 2026. Maybe 2029, but not next year. He's already shown like he doesn't. That's not how he operates. Could you see Sean McVay trading for Anthony Richardson with Stafford being hurt? I think someone is going to trade for Anthony Richardson. I saw today. I got off the set probably 45 minutes ago, and Anthony Richardson's not going to play in the last preseason game. It's like they've already admitted he needs a bunch of work. He's still developing. Well, that would be the place to play him. Well, why do people pull guys in baseball games around the trade deadline? Why does they're not putting him in the game? He's not dressing out for this game in basketball at the trade deadline. You can't risk injury. Can't put him in the game. So he's not playing. You can't convince me that they aren't fielding calls. Now, I don't think those numbers are high. I don't think it's like, well, we're deciding between a third and 2 fourths. It's probably like a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder. It's late round picks. My guess is Anthony Richardson's traded in the next week. If you had to give me a pie chart percentage chance, I'd say 75, 80% chance he's traded. 20% chance he's on the team. Especially the way that their head coach said, Daniel Jones is our starter for the season. Like, Daniel Jones clearly is not going to be on the team next year. So if you can get, it's already kind of it's water under the bridge. You spilled the milk. There's no going back. You use the first round pick that was 4th overall, and it's over. You missed. So you just move on. You literally already did with Daniel Jones. So I would expect I think a lot of teams would be interested, like work with him in practice. Like the Colts don't even want to. Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard to worry about keeping their job. Andy Reid's like, yeah, there'll be a little project for me on the side, right? Sean McVay or whoever. I think a lot of coaches and a lot of teams, and I just use those two examples. You could use anybody. Sean Payton, you could say Josh McDaniel. Maybe they got a young quarterback, probably a bad example. The Bucks, I mean, you just see teams like, yeah, we'll just work with him on the side. He's not a starter. He's a backup. So it's like he's not playing anyway. Someone's trading for him, would be my guess. Why do guys like Kevin O'Connell and Mike McDaniel get labeled geniuses by the media, but they never seem to show some love to LeFleur? LeFleur has more playoff wins than they have combined. He turned Jordan Love into a top 10 quarterback, and he only missed the playoffs once in his career. Well, I think I would separate Kevin O'Connell and Mike McDaniel. I think the bloom on the rose, the shine on the star that was Mr. Gucci and $100,000 watch and wearing capris, Mike McDaniel is dimmed. I mean, he's a laughing stock in the NFL right now with coaches, with front office people, with his own team. Like Mike McDaniel is, I would imagine there's a 50-50 chance he doesn't make it to Halloween. It could be really, really ugly. I can nitpick Kevin O'Connell. I think he can get us a little pass happy. He's a really good coach. And if you had a coaching draft in the NFL, especially if you factored in age, he would go really, really high. So I would not compare those two. I think sometimes the Packers coach, it's weird. They're a huge brand. They win all the time, but they also fly under the radar a little bit nationally sometimes, especially like if Favre or Rodgers isn't doing anything crazy. Smaller market. We spend so much time talking about the fucking Cowboys. I don't know. LeFleur is good. Where I stand on the Packers. I'm going to bet money on them to win the division. Will you be having your boy on like you did last year, betting and stats? I think you mean Stuckey, and the game plan is I need to reach out. But yes, my plan is to have him on. He's got a baby on the way as well. A couple football babies. We'll get to Zach. Me and my buddies got into a debate. Let's say I have an NFL kicker. In this example, Chris Boswell. Kicking off to me, and I have 10 attempts to return it 1 versus 1, me versus Boswell. How many times would I score a touchdown? I'm a decent athlete, 6 foot, 180 pounds, and do a lot of running. Recently ran a 3-hour marathon. I've never ran a marathon, but that sounds like pretty good. Would I have any chance of scoring? Are kickers more athletic than I'm giving them credit for? I think it depends. I think there would be some kickers that played at like Texas, or I don't know where Chris Boswell went to school, but could have been football players, like actual players at a lower level, but they were really good athletes. And some of them, Chris Boswell, he went to Rice. So that might not be the greatest example. But guys that could have played like where I went to college, Cal Poly, UC Davis, McNeese State, schools like that, and played a position, but they were great kickers and they went to a bigger university because they got a full scholarship. There would definitely be kickers, if you're a good athlete, even a good high school athlete, and you stay in shape, that you could score a touchdown with or on. Now, are they doing it like, how does this work? Are they kicking it off like the kickoff? So they kind of kick it like you catch it at the 10-yard line and they're 50 yards behind you. I mean, there is a thing with angles. I mean, there's no guarantee. It's not like they practice their open field tackling. And even when they do make open field tackles, they have a bunch of guys in front of them. So just one-on-one could be a little different. If you're a decent athlete, yes, I think you could score a touchdown on some kickers, 1,000%. Some kickers would blast you, though. Never thought of it like that. I think a couple kickers would shock you, and some kickers would be marginal athletes. I'm curious, if you started to do anything to prepare for the baby, have you read any books or Colin drop any wisdom on you? Great job on the herd. Me and Colin, after a couple cocktails in Chicago, talked life, talked relationships, and the wiring of the opposite sex. But from a child perspective, most of my friends have children, aging anywhere between 2 to 10. So I have a lot of, I would say, saved mental notes over the years. I had a good buddy. It's actually one of Maria's best friends' husband, who I've become friends with, who's an awesome dude, high level to cat. He's like kind of, he told me to read or download the Marcus Aurelius meditations. It gives some like life lessons on how to look at raising your young child. But yeah, I mean, I prayed. I mean, there's not much. I haven't done. Maria is so dialed in on different things, forwarding me every day. She's like my own personal assistant of just funneling me information. I also think, and I'm a big believer on this. There's certain things in life like you can read all you want. There's no I can't give you a handbook to your dating life or to what to do professionally. I can kind of guide you in the right way, but eventually, like you're in the trenches, you got to figure it out, and that's what I'll do. I'll figure it out, and then from there, I'll pivot. But I'd be lying if I've said I've like done much research. Um, yeah, I'm just excited. I'm listening to my local sports talk on my way to work, and I hear the radio host say that Stephen A had a take on Alabama's slow start 9-4, and that Kalen DeBoer should hand the reins to Coach Prime. I'm sure you heard this too. Being my favorite podcaster and a longtime listener, I'd love to get your thoughts. Kalen DeBoer was in the national championship game 2 years ago. Let me repeat, Kalen DeBoer was in the national championship game 2 years ago. He beat Steve Sarkisian. Do you know who he's never lost to? Steve Sarkisian. Do you know who he's never lost to? Dan Lanning. Never lost to him. He played Brian Kelly last year, beat his ass. So Kalen DeBoer, who inherited a roster that lost a bunch of players in the transfer portal when Saban retired, my guy Josh Pate thinks Alabama's going to win the SEC. Now, I don't know if they're going to win the SEC, but the more I think about it, I remember a guy texting me like a couple years ago, you went all in on DeBoer when he was playing Sark in the Final Four. And it's the biggest bet I've ever made, still to this day. I've never been more sure of something from a gambling standpoint that I was willing to go all in on it. And honestly, I should have even been more aggressive. Now I had to sweat it a little at the end, but it was a winner chicken dinner. And then last year, obviously he lost to Vanderbilt, which essentially cost him the playoffs. But Kalen DeBoer's big time. And here's the other thing. Ryan Grubb, his right-hand man, got fired in Seattle with the Seahawks. He never coached in the NFL, and now is back with DeBoer. So most people think they have the best wide receiver room in the conference. They have the best DB room in the conference. They always have good offensive and defensive lines. So, I mean, can Deion Sanders win like 8-9 games at Colorado in the Big 12 first? And I'm not anti-Deion, but to compare, DeBoer's been one of the best coaches in the country for like 4 or 5 years. They literally, when Saban retired, that's who they hired to replace him. He's been there 1 year. He'll be fine. Okay, final week of the season for LIV Golf wraps up a little Midwest swing, starting in Chicago, where I attended, then went to Indianapolis, and finishes up this week with the team championship. John Rahm won the individual title, 18 milli, beat out Joaquin Neiman, who won 5 times this year. And now we go to the team championship, which got a little Ryder Cup feel, going match play the first couple days, singles and foursomes, to heading into the final day where it'll just be normal stroke play. And John Rahm obviously won the individual title. I like Legion 13, his squad, to win the whole thing and just keep collecting those checks and finish out the season in Michigan before guys like John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, and Terrell Hatton head to the Ryder Cup here in a couple weeks in New York at Bethpage, where I kind of like the Euros. But yeah, should be a fun week in Michigan. Hopefully anyone there enjoys it. It's been a good little Midwest swing for the team championship. What do you think about the Raiders taking a chance on Anthony Richardson? Geno doesn't seem like a long-term option, but there is something to be said about... See, I don't even need to read the rest of the... This is a great example. Anthony Richardson, get him with Chip. Obviously, Geno's your starter. Can I get him for a 5th-round pick? Can you guys work together on the side, become the backup, or hell, be the 3rd-string quarterback? He's going to get traded. I think he's a lock to get traded. I really do. Now, the one reason, like the reason I don't do 100% he's going to get traded, I wonder if there's a piece of Ballard that goes, what if we do send him somewhere else? in the middle of the season, like the Raiders are a good example. Geno gets hurt. Chip's like, I'll work with Anthony Richardson. And then all of a sudden, Anthony Richardson's sweet for the Raiders. And Daniel Jones is a disaster for the Colts. Everyone gets fired immediately. Now, I do agree, and Colin's take was this, like, when offensive coaches, especially established ones, punt on guys, you should be out on them too. Kyle Shanahan said, I'm out on Trey Lance. Everyone else is too. People like Jim Harbaugh. I saw my guy Louis Riddick was like, Trey Lance just needed a spot like Jim Harbaugh. You mean to be his third string quarterback? Guy can't win a backup job. So it's like some of these quarterbacks, when these coaches pivot on them, it's like, look who gave up on Sam Darnold, right? Like Robert Saleh, who gave up on Baker Mayfield, right? The Browns, the Carolina, Matt Rule. So it's like, who's giving up on you? Does Kevin O'Connell say you suck? Because if he does, then that's concerning. Look at LeFleur. It's like, I'll play with Malik Willis. And what happened? Malik Willis is winning regular season games. Kyle Shanahan's like, I like the Sam Darnold guy. Kevin O'Connell's like, I like the Sam Darnold guy. Now look at him now. You recently touched on a subject that I've been thinking about for a number of years. As a Seahawks fan, I love the rivalry we have with the Niners. I'm so concerned about the fact that the Niners are hurt more than most teams every year. Competing in an NFC without a great Niners team just doesn't feel right. Do you think there is something with the strength and conditioning staff or coaching staff? Stanford, which I would imagine their medical team is considered one of the best in the world, which is 10 minutes away from where the 49ers offices are. Their doctors work at Stanford. They have fired their strength and conditioning staff, their training staff over the years because of these issues. There gets to a point where it's like, how about this, guys? If a guy has an injury history, we're not messing with him. I don't think the 49ers practice any differently than the good teams. Like, they do have physical practices, but I don't think it's much different. Like, why isn't George Kittle and Fred Warner getting hurt in practice? It's because you keep signing and drafting some of these guys with injury histories. Like, I think there's something to the way that the guys that they acquire. I also just think there's got to be some randomness to it. Now, you could argue that this is a long enough streak where something's a little weird. Something doesn't add up here. And I would say I kind of agree. Something doesn't make sense. I can't put my finger exactly on it, but something is off for sure. I enjoy listening to your podcast. My question is to talk about guys like Anthony Richardson and Trey Lance, both having a lot of college starts and both not having a lot of college starts, and how that has affected their careers. Do you think we have to worry about that with Arch Manning? I understand he's a different type prospect, and my thoughts are he will be fine with the potential of him declaring for the draft after one season, but does it concern you at all? 1,000%, because the more you play, I think here's a reality. If Anthony Richardson had been a multi-year starter, maybe he doesn't go in the top 5. Maybe it turns out he's not that good. What happened the more and more Will Levis played? People are like, what's this? What if Trey Lance had been a multi-year starter? Might not go in the top 5. Might not go in the first round. Because the larger the sample size, how many times have you seen a guy come up from AAA and have a 2-week stretch where he hits 10 home runs and then he never hits another home run? No one ever hears about him again. Because the more and more you play, you either get exposed or you excel. So anytime you're a 1-year starter, there's not much data. We are taking a strong, educated guess. And Mitch Trubisky, Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance. Now, you can have one breakout year, Joe Burrow, and obviously that's who you become. But there's also no rhyme or reason to any of this. I would tend to lean on guys who were multi-year starters who played at a high level. But like Joe Burrow had one incredible, Cam Newton had one incredible year. And it's like, that was their ceiling. That was their high end. They truly had that. So I think it's difficult. I think Anthony Richardson and Trey Lance had the worst combination. They truly were projects and they hadn't played much. So if you were looking at it from like, if we were at Goldman Sachs or, Bank of America or whatever in the finance department, we were running the numbers, there were a lot of question marks. There were a lot of like, not quite seeing this thing add up, right? Or some like you pick a bit Amazon. There's a lot of positives. It checks a lot of boxes. These insurance companies, why they make so much money. They don't pay us and we pay them. It's like, that's a great business to invest in. Warren Buffett's like, hey, Berkshire, fuck, quadruple down on the insurance companies. When quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, several-year starter, bunch of production, won a bunch of big games, like you felt pretty good about that, right? But when you get one-year starter, production's hit or miss, you got to be very careful about, you're trying to get it right, but the easiest way to get it right is to find the ways that where you're not going to get it wrong. And where you get it wrong is when there are a lot of holes in the argument for a player. And there were a lot of holes clearly in the arguments for those players. Looks like that's it. We banged that out. I did a rapid fire there. I was thinking about this, my one Fugazi. I can't out the hotel because I think Fox must have a deal with them, must get a good rate. I mean, it's a nice hotel. It's a little old, but I mean, it's a nice hotel. I've never been a hotel snob necessarily, but as I get older and as I've become a professional, which I've been really for the last 15 plus years of my life, a lot of times when I'm in a hotel, it's not for vacation. I bet, I don't know, 90% of my hotel usage is work related. Honestly, could be higher over the last 10 years. It's like 95% of my hotel usage is work related. And if you're a decent hotel, you need a desk. Now with the internet and the way people operate, your quote unquote Wi-Fi room or internet room or whatever room you have downstairs that has some desks, I want a desk inside the hotel. And listen, the overwhelming 99% of hotels I stay at, this one I'm staying at does not have one. And it just makes, you're trying to get situated. I'm right now, I'm in a green room. So it's I'm not complaining. I'm sitting on a couch. I've recorded my podcast from the couch the last couple of days, but it's I'm propping up my computer. It's how do you not have a desk in your hotel room? In 2025, moving forward, the way most of your guests are staying, obviously some of these hotels, but even next week, for example, we're going to Hawaii. Do you know what I'm doing? I'm going to work from there. It's a vacation, but we also got bills to pay. And I do a podcast where they kind of need me. It's not one of those I'm gone for 3 weeks. You guys handle it. This business is kind of predicated on me talking into this microphone. And guess what? We're staying at a nice Marriott property in Hawaii. I can almost guarantee, I've seen pictures, there will be a desk in the hotel room. But I just can't fathom, because there was more than enough space. There was this nice kind of wraparound couch. I don't want to sit on the couch. When I'm in the hotel, I'll sleep or sit on my desk. I would love to talk to the people at that hotel and ask about the logic that goes behind the setup of that hotel room, because I need to work. And I'm still able to, because I'm a podcaster, and there's a will, there's a way, and we're going to find that way. And we did. It just becomes a little troublesome to try to get comfortable. I need to be relaxed when I'm talking, and to not have a desk chair in the room. To not have a desk. It's just borderline travesty. How's this happening in 2025?